Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at the XRT. We kind of had a mishap off camera. I was jumping the XRT off the ramp. We landed okay, and then I noticed a grinding noise. And typically what that means is we have chipped some teeth in the gearing here. And in fact, that is actually what we did. If you can see there, we chipped some teeth here in the pinion and the spur gear. So we are going to need to change that out, which is fine, I guess. I had plans on changing the gearing out anyways because I was going to do a high-speed run for you guys, but I'm kind of wondering why we damaged the spur and pinion so bad here. I mean, there's a few teeth missing in each gear, and we didn't do anything too crazy, just jumping it off the ramp as we normally do. And it wasn't particularly a hard landing, I mean. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and change out the gearing. The optional speed gearing you get here in the kit is a 23 tooth pinion and a 46 tooth spur. So we'll be swapping that out today. If you like what we do here on the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any new content. Our first step, which we have already completed here, is taking the gear cover off. And of course, it takes 2 screws to remove the gear cover. Be sure not to lose those screws, they're pretty small, so we'll set that aside. Looking here at the truck, it looks like we're going to have to remove 4 screws here from this plastic piece that's holding the spur gear in place. So that'll be our next step. We'll go ahead and take this cover off, and then this whole gear assembly should just slide right on out. And then we will remove the pinion and go from there. One thing that you're going to want to note, you have the small screw here on your left side, and when you unscrew here on the right side, we have a longer screw. So if you're looking at the truck from the rear, you're standing behind the truck, those 2 long screws are going to be on the right side, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so we've removed the 4 screws here off the cover that's holding that gear into place. You got 2 small ones and 2 longer ones. Don't lose those, set those aside. Now we'll go ahead and remove this cover. Cover comes right off, and we do have quite a bit of grease in there, which is good. Okay, so you're going to want to remove that bearing in this gear here at the end, and go ahead and remove that small pin too, because that'll get lost. The spur gear itself has a few chips in it, nothing major. The pinion is where most of the damage is. There's another chip there in the spur gear there too, if you can see that. So we did damage the spur and the pinion, unfortunately, but it's all good. We can always buy replacements for that. Now there are 3 screws here that you're going to need to remove to get this gear off. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so we've removed those 3 screws, and the gear should just slip right on off, like so. And we will go ahead and put on the new gear. We got the new gear on there, and again, that is a 46 tooth spur. We're going to go ahead and reinstall the 3 screws. Alright, so once we've got the new gear installed here, it's time to move on to the pinion. We're going to go ahead, there's 1 grub screw holding that pinion in. We're going to go ahead and take that grub screw out and slide the pinion off. So that's our next step. So the stock pinion here in the XRT is a 20 tooth. You don't have to do that step right now. I just chose to do that. You can actually do that after you remove the motor. It doesn't really matter. We're going to have to change it out though. Here's our new pinion, and it does come with a grub screw. Looks like it does have some Loctite on there, but we're going to add a little bit more of our own to make sure it doesn't back off. And our new gear, like I said, is a 23 tooth. So that's what we'll be installing here on the motor shaft. Alright, for our next step, guys, we're going to remove these 4 screws that are holding the motor in. Be sure when you get down to the last 2, or maybe the last screw, that you kind of hold the motor in. You don't want it to fall out on the table here. So that is our next step, removing these 4 screws. Alright, so we have the 4 screws removed from underneath the chassis that was holding the motor in. So we should be able to just slide that motor over. So let's take a quick look here at the diagram. So looking here at the diagram, we're going to leave these pins here in H. These are going to stay the same. The pins that we're going to be moving here are these up top. We're going to take the pins out and we're going to move them to C. So we've moved these two pins here to C. They were in D, which is stock. The ones on the bottom stay the same because they are stock and speed. So those are going to stay in H. The ones on top we're moving to C for speed. And that's how it should look once you've aligned it. So our next step is to go ahead and mount our new pinion here on the motor. All right, so after applying your own thread locker, we're gonna go ahead and start the grub screw here in the pinion. We're not gonna screw it in all the way. We're just gonna get it in there just enough so that when we're ready to screw it in, it won't be so difficult. Always look at your motor shaft. The flat side is where you're gonna mount your pinion. Just slide it into place there. And we'll go ahead and tighten it down. All right, so make sure it's good, nice and tight there on the shaft. And again, make sure when you mount the pinion, it's on the flat side of the motor shaft. Also, you're gonna wanna add a little bit of your own Loctite just to be sure you don't want that gear slipping. All right, so we've reassembled everything here and it's ready to go back in the truck. So this is how it should look once it's reassembled. Make sure you reinstall that pin because that pin is what's gonna hold this gear in place. So we'll go ahead and put this back in the truck. Let's go ahead and put the cover back on. You got 2 long screws and 2 short screws. The longer screws go here on the right side. So that's our next step. Make sure to reinstall all 4 screws here underneath the chassis so we can get that motor mounted back down. These screws are tricky to get in, but once you get them in, they go in pretty good. But you want to get them pretty tight because you don't want that motor moving on you. Go ahead and check the mesh here just to be safe. And it seems pretty good to me. It doesn't seem too tight. Seems to be just right. So we've installed our plate here over the push drive. So our spur gear is locked into place. Our pinion is reinstalled. Our motor is remounted. We went ahead and moved the pegs to the right location because we are running the high speed gearing now here in the truck. So everything seems to be legit. So we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the motor cover, and that's our last step. So it looks like our high speed gearing is installed. We are ready to take this beast out on the street, do a nice little old speed run, and see if we can hit that 60 miles an hour. That's all I got for this video. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Later.